M820. Stream us live at WCPT820.com and on the TuneIn Radio app. Or you can ask Alexa, Siri, or Google to play WCPT from TuneIn. But now you have another option. We're simulcasting our programming overnights. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on WSBC AM 1240 for a clearer reception in and around the city. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. And now overnights on WSBC 1240 AM, where facts matter. This is a WCPT 820 Heartland Signal News Minute.
I think it's time for a divorce from Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's Congressman Mark Pocan speaking April 3rd on the Thom Hartmann program here on WCPT. At town halls he's recently held in his Wisconsin district, the six-term Democrat has found
there are a lot of voters who are concerned about seeing over 32,000 dead people in Gaza, 70% of which are women and children, clearly are not Hamas. The devastation on the ground to buildings there, 2 million people displaced within the country, and we can't get aid to them. The fact the United States can't bring aid in through normal channels through the Israeli gates, instead we have to drop it by air or bring it by water, is quite honestly ridiculous. And I'm hearing it a lot, and I've mentioned it to the administration. And the president's coming to my district Monday, and I've got the feeling I'm going to be mentioning it to the president himself.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Andy Miles.
Hi, I'm Carson Kressley. Of all the resources in the world, kindness is the most precious. For more than 140 years, American Humane has been working to protect animals in disasters, on farms, on the silver screen, and in zoos and aquariums caring for the world's vanishing creatures. You can help too by making humane choices every day. Visit AmericanHumane.org for simple ways to build a more caring and compassionate world for all of us.
We don't want you on our team. You're too slow and fat.
This is weight bias.
I'm worried about your weight.
Don't you care what other people think?
Millions who live and are affected by obesity face weight bias every day.
You're not the right fit for this job.
Unfair judgment by others.
Just stop eating so much and exercise some. You lose all this weight.
These people often blame themselves.
It's just me. Nobody likes me.
I do exercise and eat right. And I talk to my doctor.
Weight bias hurts.
Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
Your words and actions matter.
Let's stop weight bias.
Let's work together.
Be part of the solution. Go to stopweightbias.com and learn more. A public service message from Obesity Action Coalition.
WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
The following program, Collaboraction Radio, is sponsored by Collaboraction, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Priya, bounce with me. Bounce with me. Come on, Henry. It's 50 degrees and the sun out. It's been a while. It was a very gray week.
It was.
Here we go. Welcome to Collaboration Radio. I'm your host, Anthony Mosley. Yes. Welcome to Collaboration Radio. We're here at the Six Corners of Art, Activism, and Social Change. That was DJ Lady D with our opening theme song. I call it Do Do Do. And we have a great show for you. We're all alive, so let's all just snap it up for being alive. Some people can't snap.
It's true.
Right? We all have privileges all day long, and we don't even think about them because they're privileges.
Yeah.
Because we have blind spots. And everyone that you look at, they have blind privileges that you don't know about. Hey, let's get into it. I'm Anthony Mosley, and you've joined us here at Collaboraction Radio on WCPT 820 AM, Chicago's progressive talk radio. We're also streaming live on the Facebook and WCPT.com, and we're available on podcast after the fact on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, SoundCloud. Just type Collaboration Radio into the search bar, and you will find this is our 41st episode.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. Who's that, you say? Well, it just so happens that all of our guests have amazing radio voices. I don't know if it's just art activism together, like you're creative, but you just have that energy. And today we have another great voice and many other things. Priya Shah is joining us today.
Yay, thanks for having me, Anthony.
We're going to get to Priya and all her amazing goodness in a little bit. I can do dad jokes, right? I'm sorry. You get to a certain age and you have a kid, and you either do dad jokes or you do no jokes. If you're lucky enough to be a dad, your jokes are going to turn into dad jokes. And if you don't have kids and you tell dad jokes, welcome to the club, It's like inclusive. But you got to look in the mirror and say, why are you telling dad jokes? You didn't have to do the diapers or the late nights, and you could probably dress like a cool person. When you have a kid, there's a period there where it's hard to be as cool as everybody else, but you're cool in a different way because you're a baby's person. Mm-hmm. Here at Collaboration Radio, you can catch us every Saturday at 4 p.m. Central. And we are sponsored by the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation. Thank you, Feinberg Foundation. Shout out to Janice Feinberg. And then our huge group of donors and patrons and members. You can become a member of Collaboration Radio for as little as $1 per month. That's $12 a year, and that's $120 a decade. Wow. That's not that much. Or you can just donate $120. Or you can donate $1,200, and you see where I'm going, and we're going to be making a big ask soon of everybody. And if you don't have money, you can give us time or cupcakes. That's how it works. Figure out what social issues you care about most. Find a group that is a nonprofit, ideally, that is organized to take on that problem. And when they go and do stuff that you can't go and do because you got other things going on, you give them money, you give them cupcakes, and let them go do it for you. But your energy will still be there. And so if you don't have money, you got time. If you don't got money or time, we will take your cupcakes or cookies. And another group that gives us amazing versions of their cookies and cupcakes is AV Chicago. They're one of the leading providers of audiovisual production and event management services in Chicago. They want to help diversify the production and tech and event industry, especially amongst the technicians, lighting, sound, video guys. And one of the ways they contribute to that is by sponsoring Collaboration in our work. When we roll into the parks with our light tour, we have gear from AV Chicago. When we do Trial in the Delta or any of the other great projects we have going on, Moonset Sunrise, Peace Book, we get gear from them. And go check them out if you need some gear. They got the gear and the geeks together. They make just magical events that look really good and are memories that you then can take photos and video of, and they'll last forever, longer than us, because we're just here for a little bit of time, Priya.
Everything's temporary. It's
so short. We think it's long, but just like the butterfly thinks it has a long life. The butterfly is like, what's an insect that lives for a very short amount of time? Yeah, those fruit flies. Did you know the fruit flies only live like 8 days? We live forever. We live 40 days. And we're like, the butterfly, 40 days is nothing. Mm-hmm. And then what lives a long time? Planets. The planets are like silly humans. You guys just up and die. You're born and you die and you're gone. We're also sponsored by Ethos Event Collective, which is a purpose-driven destination and event management company. If you are part of a corporation who is looking to do, they call it event destination management. If you're bringing a bunch of folks in from another country and you need to make sure that you have a great conference, convention, this is a destination management company that is about social change and equity. So that's the kind of people you want to get on your team so you can make sure you're taking care of everybody, not just your people, your guests, and all the people behind the scenes that come together to make an event happen. Ethos Event Collective. And if you're saying, who is this Collaboraction? We are a 27-year-old Chicago artistic nonprofit. Our mission is to build knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action. We call that KEDA. KEDA. Why? Because I said knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action so many times, I just thought there's got to be something there. And then I said, oh, look it, KEDA, and it's KEDA. So that's what we do. And there is research out there that shows that artistic experiences like theater actually change behavior and attitudes. And we're trying to change... I'm trying to change my behavior and attitude, and I think I've done a decent job of it in the last 50 years, but especially the last 12 years since I really took ownership of my whiteness and my privilege. There's nothing wrong with privilege, power, and influence as long as you share it. If you hoard it, they have a name for that. In the human body, they call that cancer. Something that takes more, the cells that take more than they need, they call that a cancer. In our culture, we just call that success. Rich people with many cars. Wow, they have 10 cars? Wow, they're so successful. Wow, I never knew whoever had the most cars won. Oh, the biggest house? Wait, they got this house and this house and this house and this house, and they only live in that one at the same time? Wow, they're successful. I want to grow up and be like them, have a huge carbon footprint and a bunch of headaches. Do you want to pay 6 cable bills? Do you want to buy toilet paper for 6 houses? It's stupid. And that's why you see some of these guys, they get so rich, they go back, Elon sleeps in the floor of SpaceX now. That's where he's most at home.
Interesting.
That's a joke, but
okay.
Not really. It's kind of true. But that's who Collaboraction is. We make film and radio, and theater is where we come from. We're theater people. We make devised theater. And check us out at collaboraction.org. What's up for Collaboraction? You ask. Levana Madrid is coming to Pritzker Pavilion, Millennium Park, August 23rd. Sandro Delgado's Chicago classic about Levana Madrid, which was a Latin jazz club in the 60s at Sheffield and Belmont. It was a place where Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, Ecuadorians, Mexicans would go there too, but their music was a little more like polka. This is the birth of salsa, which happened in New York City in the 60s. People don't realize that. Latin rhythms like cumbia mixed. Salsa means the mix. Mixed with jazz. And then we got salsa. People don't realize that. This show recreates the nightclub where these communities came together to have a refuge here in Chicago in the middle of an immigration, I want to say pandemic, but, there was a horrible practice of just putting them out of movie theaters, putting them on a bus, and shipping them to another country without even any due process. Anyways, Levana Madrid, full band, free show.
Beautiful show. I loved it when I saw it.
Do you think you'll be able to join us on August 23rd? It's a Friday night.
I'll be there.
It's the Friday after the Democratic National Convention. And we're really excited to to make the connections of these stories from the 60s with our new Chicagoans who have come, many from Latin countries. It's free. It's for the whole family. Most of the music is in Spanish. 90% of the text is in English. There will be some translation and ASL services, so come. Then we're doing callbacks for The Light right now. Next week we have David Desmalchian on the show. David has got the amazing movie Late Conversation with the Devil, which has been was 6th at the box office last week. It's David's first film produced by his Good Fiend production company. Do you know David Desmalchian?
I don't think I do.
I bet you do.
Okay.
Google him. Look him up right now.
Okay.
You're going to go, that guy. Oh, yeah, he's one of my favorite actors. He's one of the nicest guys ever, and he's so talented and smart. He was in Dark Knight, Oppenheimer, Dune. He plays Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad. Dasmal. His film, Conversation with the Devil, is in theaters right now. Go see it. It's going to be screening. You do know him, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
What was he in? I mean, in your head, like, how do you know him? What do you remember him from?
I don't remember him from a particular movie, but it was always a little creepy character.
Yeah. He was in Ant-Man. He played a Russian guy in Ant-Man. And there was another thing that he played he was maybe the bad guy, and then he wasn't. What was that called? That was a Jake Gyllenhaal movie with Hugh Jackman. I don't remember. But here we go. Let's get into it. Priya Shah is the founder and CEO of The Simple Good. And we're going to talk about The Simple Good today. And Priya is going to challenge you to call in with your simple good. She is triggering social consciousness to challenge barriers and empower communities from the inside out. As a Chicago creative and entrepreneur, she has built a network of artists and collaborators dedicated to igniting social awareness and change through art and imagination. She began volunteering in developing countries at a young age, which inspired her to fill the gap between business and the social sector. She went on to earn degrees in both accounting and finance from the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, using her studies as an opportunity to deepen her understanding of diverse cultures and perspectives through international travel. Then she went and worked for Ernst & Young and Groupon. She did some strategic planning and operations work. And she then did a bunch of other stuff, but eventually she founded The Simple Good. And The Simple Good is a 501c3 nonprofit. Their mission is to connect the meaning of good from around the world to empower youth to become positive activists through art and discussion. Through mindfulness and social-emotional learning-based art programming and public art projects, their mission is to transcend the message that no matter where you go in the world, good means the same to all of us. And that is what connects us as human beings. If you know me at all, you know by hearing that why she and I like each other so much. We're in the same lane, and we've been bumping and high-fiving and shimmying and having doing important work side by side and having fun every now and then for a little while now. I don't know how long it's. I don't even know when did we meet?
I think 10 years ago.
Feels like a decade to me. Yeah, we have the pandemic in there. So, welcome to Collaboraction Radio. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
I do see you, I'll just start with the question that most guests get because it's apropos, especially here. But first, before we do that, will you challenge people to as they listen to you, feel free to call in and tell us what and why?
Yes, everyone, please call in 773-763-WCPT, so 773-763-9278, and we want to invite you to call in to share your meaning of the simple good. That is whatever that means to you. I'm going to keep that open to interpretation.
What is your simple good? We are collecting simple goodness today on the Simple Good Priya Shah, episode 41. And, these are going to be short things. So don't say, talk for 5 minutes about all these good things. 60 seconds, short, good. Short, simple, good. Share it with our live listeners. We all have one thing we can do better than anybody else ever. Some people get close to finding it. When you get close to finding it, I believe you start to take on almost superhero-like qualities where you can transcend the moment and change lives and almost alchemy, take something out of nothing. And I think you're doing that right now. So what is your origin story? How did little Priya grow up into a change maker, a superhero for simple good?
Oh, thank you. I grew up in Oak Park, right outside of the city, and I grew up as an artist. I'm a visual artist. I paint and draw, do mixed media work. A lot of people don't actually know that. They're like, oh, you just run the organization. I'm like, no, but I'll start it with the art. But, as growing up, I was actually challenged with a lot of different levels of oppression in a lot of different ways. Being a woman in this world, being a woman of color that's born with one hand, and you're experiencing a lot of different people, different types of people saying no to you in a lot of different types of ways to advance your possibility. And what I realized is that, you're not born into the world with obstacles. People create them. And that's why they can be overcome. And it was really people's short-sightedness of my possibility because of how I was born into this world that they created subconscious decisions that didn't allow me to actually achieve my purpose and my potential. And I made those connections at a very young age.
Like how old?
Honestly, 6 or 7. Because I really did, I remember a point I would just look at the sky and be like, why is the world so hard? Because I was a very young kid and everyone was saying no. And I just had that thought in my mind. Always, it's in the back of everything that you're experiencing. And then I had these powerful experiences at a young age, volunteering at different places all over the world. I was at Mother Teresa's orphanage. I was working in slums in South Africa and Brazil.
How does that happen?
Just through different volunteer opportunities, studying abroad in a lot of different places and taking advantage of just these experiences because I was so curious about how folks overcame.
Tell us about your parents.
My parents are both South Asian descent. My dad was born in India right before Indian independence, actually, and my mom was born in Uganda. A lot of people don't know that Indians were actually brought over to East Africa centuries ago through the British as slaves. And they brought in a lot of Indians to build the railroad there. And so my grandfather moved after Indians had been settled there, and my mom was born in Uganda. And there was somebody very similar to a recent person that we actually have in presidency, Trump, that was a dictator, his name Idi Amin. And all of a sudden he had a premonition, he should make a decision that all the South Asians need to be kicked out of the country in 90 days. So, in America, when Trump was like, Mexicans need to go back to where they came from, that actually happened to my family. And my mom became a refugee within her own country in India, right? She's not born there. And suddenly she's in a new place without any type of, option, possibility, resources, and then suddenly is now in America because there was a lot of challenges, right? And so both of my parents are Indian, but have very different perspectives of what it means to be Indian because of how they're born. And so I always had a very diverse international perspective of my heritage as well, because I came from that. And that's also, she is also one of the people that encouraged me to travel whenever I got the opportunity. She said 2 things. Whenever you have the opportunity to travel, you go. Whenever you have the opportunity to help somebody, you do it. And that's really, influenced how I've navigated the world and try to understand it.
Okay, and then I threw a tangent in there. Yeah. We're in your origin story, and then you started traveling. 16, 17, and then what happens?
I was working at, did a short little volunteer opportunity at Mother Teresa's orphanage, and that was a very profound moment for me, because that's really truly the place where I learned what it meant to learn and teach resilience and understand this moment of the simple good. This is a space where children have gone through more within a short period of time on this earth than many of us have.
Where was that?
In Delhi, in India.
And Mother Teresa, was she alive at the time?
She was at the time.
Was she there?
No. Mm-mm. She is at the Chennai location, so it's in South India.
Oh, okay.
So I never actually met her.
I just had a visual of like you and her
chilling,
in the food hall, and she's like, "Priya, you're so good and simple." And you said, "Thank you, Mother Teresa. You rock."
I'm going to turn it into an organization, what you just said.
Okay, sorry.
No.
But that's huge. That's amazing. And these kids have lived through war and famine and...
No, not this war and famine, but there's definitely hunger, But it's a lot of the kids were discarded by society, including their family, because they weren't born perfect. And, there were children that were lit on fire because they're born without a leg, or they're in poverty and something happened and now they're amputated. And because of that, you're not valued as a human. And overall in the world, actually, this whole understanding of what it means to be born with different limbs and how that's a huge percentage of our population, but we're disregarded as humans, is something that is not talked about at all, right? It's a lower class situation, and if it is in the upper class, then there's something wrong with you, right? And there was a lot of this type of human discard I felt in this room, and they were actually the most resilient kids I've ever met. They knew how to find the simple good within themselves and observe that around them and be able to call that out. That was something that they knew existed. Good did exist in the world. And that's why, despite everything that we've gone through, it's a life worth living. And I just saw this mentality in the way that they just saw and perceived the world, that I looked at myself and I'm like, what am I complaining about? I was a high school student, obviously trying to emerge into what my identity was, in the realm of everybody telling me what I was not. And that I didn't make enough space to think about what I am. And I thought, man, we don't actually teach that here, back at home. We always teach kids what they're not, instead of challenging us to who we actually are, so we can move towards our possibility and our purpose. And I thought, what is the simple good about myself? What is good about myself? And I realized, I'm an artist. When I make things and give it to people, they become happy. And if that's the way that I'm meant to make an impact in the world, then I need to do that. And so that's how I really started, moving in that path. And it made me realize, I'm not the only one that's written off as a person as a young age. There's so many other kids that are just like me that are written off. We need to all teach each other their simple good. And we can overcome whatever life tries to throw at us. And that's really that kind of aha moment that started at a very young age. And I actually went into business after doing all this volunteer work around the world, because I saw the gap between business and the social sector. I'm like, man, there's so many good people doing awesome work that really is healing the world, but they don't know business. And sometimes that cuts short some of the advancement that we can create. And then business folks don't actually understand community. And therefore, they don't know how to help, right? So there's this two different languages that are happening. How can we bridge the two? And so I ended up going into accounting and finance, and everybody was shocked. They're like, why aren't you in art school? What are you doing here? And subconsciously, that was my thought. I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to bring these two things together.
Do you know that I'm a finance major?
I know that, yes.
We'll save that for another time, because I want to go back to this idea of these children that have been discarded and disfigured, and they must have, what were their ages? Probably everything.
Everything, yeah.
But you were volunteering there. Mm-hmm. They probably saw you as the coolest kid ever. And just to think of you went there to give to them and they probably gave a lot to you.
Yes.
They were probably like, you're the coolest big sister or friend or American girl we've ever meeten. You have overcome, but they probably, the gift they gave to you, because it sounds like that was the beginning of what you're doing. That was your first cohort.
Yes.
And they prepared you to be able to walk into any room, which you already were, but that's when it flips, you know, when you're a young person, there's a period where you go from receiving and having to react to being able to become the person that is changing things. Mm-hmm. Life doesn't just happen to us. We can change it. He might have been a jerk, but Steve Jobs was one of the first people that really made that clear in an everyday American business design way, that if you don't like your life, and it does take privilege, but also you can be, you know, my dad was in Vietnam and he got shot through the arm, almost died, went across his stomach, but he had a belt of bullets that the bullets hit. Oh. And he would talk about waking up in the hospital with guys on his left and right with their legs and face blown off. Wow. And he's on morphine and he's getting, like, you know, soup from this nurse. And he's like, where am I? How did I get here? But I'm just so grateful. He was like in heaven, in hell. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get into all of that because I could talk about it, but I consider myself a secondary PTSD survivor from my dad's experiences that I learned about before I was ready to process them as a young boy.
Yeah.
And but yet I also have to reckon with the fact that my dad was invading another person's country who wasn't really looking for a war with the United States over a, you know, if you just, you know, the social tragedy of the Vietnam War, as they call it in Vietnam, the American War.
Yeah.
But, so then when does the 501c3 happen?
It started 12 years ago. And it happened, I was actually started The Simple Good when I was in business and I was in corporate finance and I was doing it on the side. And, you know, it was almost like my time to invest in this pilot program to show the world that this works, right? And it actually started with a photography blog that me and a few friends started called The Simple Good. And it was photos of my own and my friends' different captures of these different essences of the simple good that we experience, and then we invited the world to submit their own. And within a week, the blog went viral. And we got submissions from all around the world, literally like China, France, all over the States. It was crazy, right? Italy. But I really wanted that, you know, digital like virality. I wanted that conversation to have it in person. And I wanted our youth here in Chicago to also be a part of it. You know, I was doing all this work all around the world, and I realized the same stuff that I'm working with is happening in our own backyard. And we write off people simply because of what they look like and where they're born. And they also have the capacity, we all have the capacity of sharing our simple good and bringing that into the world to create change for good for all of us. And I wanted our kids to participate in that. So, you know, that's how it started. We created a small program with a group of children in Auburn, Gresham, and then it had just such a powerful, beautiful impact, not only on the kids, but also the larger community, that this was a process that was enabling the coping process, right? And then also for us to change the narrative of creating examples of good rather than bad. And now, because we do believe that exists in the world, we are going to make decisions that support and uplift that. And because it was that simple essence that allowed this program to grow on its own, actually.
If you have a simple good and you want to share it with us, call it 773-763-9278. Okay, so did you know it was going to be called The Simple Good for a few years before you launched this thing? Like, did you know, or did you actually have a brainstorm and say, and then come up with it? Or, because it seems like almost,
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both. it's like knowing what you actually want, and then you're going through this brainstorm and doing all these creative ideas, like maybe it should be this, maybe it should be that, and then it was a conversation. It's like maybe we should say it's the simple good.
And so I know so many people that like Collaboration included over time, where you have like an idea for open submissions, and you get like 3, and you got a lot the first time out.
Yeah.
How did that? What do you attribute that to? For all those people listening that want to do open call artistic submissions.
I think it was an interesting time, kind of also in the time of the digital world, where folks were really highly engaged.
2012.
Yeah. And blogs were a big thing, right? People were super like ready to react.
Web 2.0.
Yeah. MySpace era, I think, was a little after that.
So, and that's the year that actually Collaboration shifted and became, a theater for social change, and started making devised work to take on so I do feel that was part of the zeitgeist of the early teens.
Yeah.
And what's going on now?
Oh, all the things. I am not running around these streets spreading the simple good on my own. I have a team, thank the Lord. And we are working on expanding and growing and establishing all of our programs all across the city. So we have about 20 program partners all across the city. So mostly CPS, private schools, and community-based organizations, both in school and after school. We have a very exciting new partnership that we're going to launch this year with the Department of Juvenile Justice, so working with incarcerated youth. This year we launched senior programming, so working with elderly 65 and plus, engaging with our kids and understanding their simple good to support intergenerational dialogue, which I think is super important. And just doing all the things and then getting ready for our fundraisers for this year. So, yeah.
I want to play a game. Henry, are you available?
Absolutely.
Well, then you got to turn your mic on.
Absolutely, I do.
Can we turn the lights off? Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Paul, is it okay if we turn the lights off? All right, cool. We're going to just go around and we're each going to say a simple good. And no more than 5 words. And we're basically going to keep on going until somebody doesn't come up with a simple good. And then that person's out. And then and there'll be 2.
Dang.
Why? Because it's live and it'll be fun. And I'm really good at making stuff up. So I think I can maybe hang past one of you and get to the finals. And everything's a competition because I grew up in a sports family. I played 5 sports as a kid.
You did? What sport?
Golf was my best. But I played golf, hockey, soccer, baseball, basketball.
Wow.
And I played a little football, but I broke my arm and I wanted to play golf, so I didn't play anymore. Plus I skied and I skateboarded. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I was 5.
Yeah. It was hard to be an artist when you but I was an artist on the ice. Okay. I'll go first. Once I start, we'll go Anthony, then Henry, then Priya.
Okay.
Okay. I'll go first. Rocky Road ice cream.
Warm blanket and rain on the window.
Sunny days.
My wife's neck.
The sound of waves on a beach.
Peacefulness.
Snuggling with my dog.
Out already.
Okay. All right. Can you turn your flashlight on your phone and self-light yourself? Like, it'll be real scary and kind of creepy. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is it working? Yeah. There, you got to get kind of closer. Okay. There you go. Yes. Oh, that's cool. Look how good you look. Like it looks. The whole shot looks so good with you and WCBT. You'll see when you look at this later. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes. I'm also very competitive. I play basketball and softball, so
all right. Well, you're probably
going down.
You're probably going to beat me. You're the queen of simple good, and I'm the queen of making stuff up. So let's see. Are you ready?
Ready.
You go. I think it was your turn.
Chicago.
Michael Jordan.
Traveling.
Italian beef.
Smiles.
Smelling my own farts.
Laughter.
Collaboration Radio.
Anthony.
Oh, you got me! Oh, she won!
It's like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. No, I let you win. I have to be a good host. Henry, will you turn the lights back on, please? All right, let's give it up for Priya Shah, the simple good champion.
I'm going to do that game in the classroom. That's a good one.
Okay, that was fun.
That was fun.
So, what do you think about what's going on in our city these days? What are the things? They talk a lot about Trump and Biden on this show, and that's all really kind of important and scary. And here in Chicago, we have a host of issues. What are the things that are on your mind and heart right now? What are the things that you think? I think any artist really, like I say to folks, tap into the things that like you can rant about at the bar. You know, like tap into the things that you really have some thoughts on. What are those things for you?
That a lot of the city still doesn't realize how segregated we are, which is wild to me, and what type of impact that actually makes. You know, like obviously me and you know, you know, and are immersed into this world, but I am still realizing a lot of the city really just does not get it.
By design. Systemic and structural racism is designed to keep the people that benefit from the intersectional oppression blind and ignorant, really ignorant to what's going on. And it will take something. Now remember, RFK, JFK, Dr. King, all murdered once they started working to bring different groups together. Yeah. Once they said, "Hey, let's get all the poor people together," poof, they're gone. I actually heard this driving over here about, you know, if everybody voted, we could do anything we want, and it's true. But you know what? No one's going to vote if they don't think their voice matters, and if they don't care. Right. And the segregation it's just systemic, you know. It's all we know. It takes a pinch point. It takes a moment. It takes a thing to happen for someone to, especially if you have power, privilege, and influence, like I had and I still do. When I finally woke up and said, "This is not right. I can't just go about it anymore." I called my second quarter life crisis. My first quarter life crisis got me from finance into being an artist. I was always gravitated to giving voice to the voiceless. I think that's because of, you know, I think my father's Vietnam experience did a lot. Because when you're a Vietnam vet and a Purple Heart and you kill a lot of people for your country and you come back home and you're treated poorly and you internalize that, you lose a little bit of your whiteness. It's a class thing. You just, you know. But then after we had a child, you know, that was when I said, now what? I climbed up the tree a little bit. And then I was having a crisis of career and artistic drive, purpose. And I started saying, this is not right. It's on the news, the top of the news, every news hour. 12 shot, 5 killed in Chicago this weekend. Yeah. And we just oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, murders are down, honey. Right. It's no, we have a genocide happening in our city. And the murders are only, our education system. Yeah. Why are we not investing everything we can into every young person? It's not going to hurt anybody. Yeah. If you want to go into debt, let's go into debt with the best schools and learning facilities for every kid.
Yeah. It's tragic. I don't think people understand the reality of the education system for our kids. And there's so many brilliant minds that are just for no reason. Like, this should not be happening in a first world country in this very rich, resourceful city. That kids are neglected from a young age without any poor decision making of their choice. And after everything's said and done, the kid's still blamed, you know? And there is a possibility to do better. And it's really mind blowing that despite being one of the largest cities in the world, we haven't figured it out.
You know what that is? It's a simple bad.
Yes, it is. It is a very simple bad.
It's a simple bad. Yeah. And if you don't understand how we as a Chicagoland are one people, one community, how we are connected to all of us, and what happens to any of us happens to all of us. You know, and
yes,
it's mind blowing, and I get it. We're not fully cooked yet. We're not civilized yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at the world, you know, and it's okay. Hey, you know, the species is, you know, the human race is working it out. You know, we've come a long way in the last 5,000 years, and we got 5,000 more to go. And we just have the baton in our hands for just a short time on the track on this huge relay race that we're in. We each have 40,000 ancestors.
Amazing.
Behind us.
And we've learned nothing from them.
No, we've learned a lot. We just haven't learned the important things.
We haven't acknowledged how important that is, right? And how much actually ancestral wisdom that's behind all of us to do better. And I also think that us as Americans need to also pay attention to the rest of the world and what we can learn from the world. We are the child of a world. We're such a young country.
Yeah.
We're like the screaming teenager that wants everything and knows nothing, you know? Not all teenagers are like that, but you know what I mean? Like, we're still forming our identity, and we haven't learned from what has come before us. There's many different countries and places where people can coexist. I've been there. I've been a part of it, and it's so beautiful. And that is actually what humans are meant to do. We're supposed to integrate, coexist, and that's how vibrant, beautiful cultures are created. You know, I studied abroad in a lot of different places on purpose, but what I realized unconsciously, they are all vibrant because they were all port cities. And that's where there are a lot of different mixtures of cultures, types of people, integrations, and that's why there's so much different, rich of culture, language, religion, wealth of wisdom, knowledge. So you look at like Brazil, Bahia, Brazil, there's a coastal, Cape Town, South Africa, New Orleans. These are all beautiful
New
spaces.
York, San Francisco. I mean, New York doesn't have, like, when New Yorkers come to Chicago, like people that grew up in New York and not Manhattan, you know, when they see the way we're segregated here, they're like, whoa, this is like Epcot. Oh, Chinatown. Whoa, look at that. Whoa, we're in little Puerto Rico. Whoa, little Italy. Man, you know, like Lavana Madrid said, Chicago is a city of neighborhoods. That means you stay in your neighborhood, I stay in mine. And that thought is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What else is keeping you up at night?
Our international relations and how, oh my God, I can't even.
Educate me. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I want to hear what you're thinking.
I mean, I think this time is a huge reality check for Americans to understand how we are a bully into the world and how we really do value one demographic of life over the other, despite the fact that people of color are what makes up most of the American identity. And yet we're okay with not acknowledging that and not even having a priority of an agenda of integrating our humanity with each other. Like, that's just not a thing right now. We are not interested in that. And that's why it's very hard, and I understand why there's disengagement at the moment, for people to feel included. Because if you can kill people in this violent way, in this inhumane way on one end, why wouldn't anybody believe you can't do it elsewhere? Why can't you do that at home? We actually do that at home, right? We do that within our own city. And there's a huge time of reflection that what we're seeing internationally is a mirror of what we do here, and it's nothing different.
It's karma.
Yeah.
I mean, we continue to give people reasons to hate us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I like to say? Have you ever seen Star Wars? You know Star Wars?
Yes.
Luke.
Yeah.
In the Force, Princess Leia, R2,
yes.
all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing. Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi. America is the Death Star. The rebellion is not America. The rebellion is not America.
No.
The rebellion is like a small country that's trying to exist, and the Death Star is trying to oppress.
Yeah.
And when people think about that, they go, oh, yeah.
And I think people need to understand this reckless action does come around, you know, and for every death that we create, it doesn't end there. Like, a war isn't something that just ends. It has generational impacts on human beings, whether it's within your family or outside of it. And like you just said with your father, same thing with my parents, you know. Indian independence was a very ruthless independence. The South Asian exodus in Uganda is a very ruthless one, and my parents are still impacted by it. And I didn't realize what it was until later, of course. But people don't realize that when we're engaging in this isn't a one-time thing. This is a generational impact that needs a lot of investment in healing. And even if you're a business person and you want to think about it in an economic standpoint, we are stopping all the economics from growing in the future. And this doesn't benefit anybody. And at the end of the day, it's like we do have such a short period on this earth. Why isn't it being invested for us to coexist, to make this life a really beautiful life for each other? And I think we've completely lost touch of that. And honestly, the world does need more simple good in the world. Just think about each other's humanity and how we're all interconnected with it. It's not separate. And if we do think we're separate, we have lost connection with our own selves. And I think that's the most alarming thing to see every single day, that there's so many people that are so disconnected with themselves that they cannot connect with another person's humanity.
And then there's back to social media. You talked about trauma, ultimately, generational trauma. And I do want to, the flip side of that is that when you live through trauma, you do gain an insight.
Yeah, a wisdom.
A wisdom that was earned, that cannot be taken away from you.
Yes.
And it can go good or bad, you know, but there is something there. And for artists, you know, that the trauma of Chicago has created some of our greatest art forms. And however, we continue to be a culture that doesn't understand, grasp, or really properly handle trauma. Like this trauma-informed care thing is just something that came out in the last 5-6 years. When I was going through what I was going through with my father, PTSD was like a rubbish word, you know, back when astrology didn't count. Spirituality was a joke. Yeah. And, you know.
Tarot cards? Does that count? No.
Yeah. And it's an interesting time with our new mayor.
Yeah.
There's a new cultural or commissioner of cultural arts. I don't know what the title is. That's just been announced. And I'm actually going to be going to the University Club to hear the mayor talking about the DCASE plan and introducing the new commissioner on Monday night. And I'm very curious to see what they have to say and what the plan is, because our arts and culture scene is amazing, but it is in kind of ICU a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And the theater scene is just in very difficult position. TV, writers, film, all that stuff. It's just everything has changed. Acting, all of that's changed. AI is now doing voiceovers, by the way.
Lord.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But they can't do radio hosting, three-way, simple good competitions in the dark.
Yeah. Not at all.
Or can they? It wouldn't have been that good, though.
Not at
when
all.
you did Aunt Me, and then I was going to do you, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm married here. Priya and I are... You got me. Yeah, you went meta. But yeah, what are your thoughts on what's going on with our arts and culture scene?
I think it's also, a reflection of the segregation. People don't know how rich our scene is, how many talented people come from Chicago, and that's why there's this common thing of like Chicago artists leave Chicago and then blow up elsewhere because those cities invest in artists. And we can do that here, and we should be able to stop it. It's crazy also, okay, on top of the segregation, how many Chicagoans don't know how dope our art scene is? It's wild. Chicago Art Week is next week. It's a full week.
Art Expo.
Art Expo. There are art fairs coming from the UK. All these galleries are opening. How many people know about this? A lot of people don't know about this. And it's a huge moment of culture and understanding the richness of our community. People are flying into our city for this, and Chicagoans don't even know. And there needs to be a huge PR campaign, education about the richness of Chicago. And then in addition to that, bringing the different art forms together on a regular basis in a way that's accessible for everybody. People don't even know how international our city is and the different cultures there is. And the arts is a way to bring that together in order to make it everybody's culture, right?
And the value of art,
like
really for every Chicagoan to have a base understanding that art gives us a glimpse into the transcendent, to another person's soul. Because when you make a piece, it's your whole life that goes into it.
Yeah.
And when we share our lives with each other through these pieces, we gain knowledge and empathy. And then when we talk about it, they become real things that can be actionable.
Yeah.
And that's our KEDA methodology.
Yes, I love it. I love how you just pulled that in there. That's amazing. Because I had a simple, good analogy.
Oh, I beat you.
But I think the power of the arts, if you actually pay attention to it, is that inherently causes you to pause and understand. And that's how the empathy comes, right? If you see a beautiful mural, you're pausing and taking that in and reflecting on, why did this person do this? That's a moment of processing empathy. And if we just respect it more and look for it more, oh my gosh, how much it feeds into our soul and our genes for us to just pause. And I think that's what we need right now. Everybody needs to pause and not be so reactive. And art helps facilitate that habit and understanding within us.
I'm an optimist, but if people didn't if the pandemic didn't cause people to reflect and change, what will? That's the thing that's blown me away, is like how many people went right back to the same way they were. And even in the art world, people went right back to producing like they did before.
Yeah.
And if you're in the theater business, you're basically driving a train off a cliff. And you could stop and disconnect and leave some of the train still up there, but no, just these 8-show-a-week runs with big sets and nobody's coming, and the work has to change. And the thing is that technology is the great changer, and for social change, for international unity. That's my hope, is that technology is a tool, but that it will give the people who haven't had the power more power and more power and more power, to the point that we as a people can become more connected and more actionable to say we belong to one another. Mm-hmm. This whole city is one family.
Yes. Yeah. I know. It's a lot. And I think also it goes back to the art education that should be in every school, right? If you're not exposed to something, how do you seek it out? And I think that's something that why it's even more vital to make sure that our kids get exposure to it, so they understand the richness that's around us and continually seek that out for their own development. And if you don't expose to it, then how do you even know that there's a beautiful opera up the street that you can go and attend?
And when it comes to segregation, we have one of the greatest park systems in the country. This summer, pick a neighborhood that you haven't been to that you've heard a lot about. Englewood is an amazing neighborhood.
Super dope.
One of the most vibrant, coolest, friendliest, inclusive neighborhoods in the city. There are many others. I won't go on the list right now, but Austin, Humboldt Park, Hermosa, Pilsen, Hyde Park, Bronzeville.
Everywhere.
Okay, South Shore. Pick one of those.
Pullman, that's historical.
Find the parks there. Also, there are these things called cultural center parks. Find the cultural center park. Look at the schedule of free programming for nights out in the park this summer. Circle a date. Get a group or a family or two together and go into that community and just get beyond any feelings that you have about hearing how unsafe it is.
Yeah.
And if you feel that way, it's okay. That's the shedding of that ignorance as you get there. And then be with the people, and then say, that was cool. Next time, let's get food down the street on the way there, and go to every neighborhood of this city. If you live here for more than 10 years and you haven't been to some of these neighborhoods we just listed, shame on you.
Definitely.
Then the system is working like it intended, and you are not bucking the system to separate us all. I mean, 1994 was built to separate Bridgeport from the Taylor homes. And there was a sign that said this highway was built to keep the blacks out of Bridgeport. And it was on the above the underpass. And you can find that at the Chicago History Museum. It's going to take work to unwind that kind of stuff. And it starts with the simple things.
Yes, by us visiting each other's neighborhoods.
Yeah. And then doing simple good things there with each other.
With each other.
And collaborating.
And bringing good to others every single day.
And be good to yourself. You're an amazing miracle.
Yes, we are all good.
Just like Priya Shah is.
Oh, thank you.
You see, I did almost cry back there. Did you water up too? Were you starting to water up?
Yeah, as soon as I saw you crying.
Oh, jeez. I thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I will plug June 29th, please save the day. Our 9th annual Hunt for Good scavenger hunt, which fundraises for our summer art programs. It's a Chicago art scavenger hunt, and it's a race to find the simple good of Chicago. So relating to everything we just talked about, exploring different neighborhoods through the arts.
What's the website?
thesimplegood.org/HFG.
She's Priya Shah. I'm Anthony Mosley. Peace.
The preceding program, Collaboraction Radio, is sponsored by Collaboraction, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company.